Welcome to the Speaker Meeting, a space where we break the silence one story at a time. Every episode, you'll hear from someone who's been there, through the struggle of addiction, the turning point into recovery, and the journey after. Because no matter where you are, you're not alone. Recovery is possible, and hope is real. My hope is that by sharing these stories, you'll believe it to be true. My name is Chibbi. My sobriety date is April 5th, 2024, and this is the Speaker Meeting. So thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Before we begin, I asked you to pull a tarot card.
Yes.
To kind of just help us guide the energy of the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And you pulled the Six of Cups. This card is very much about memory, right? It's about our emotional roots and kind of how we carry the past with us. It asks us to kind of like return into parts of ourselves, but not necessarily get stuck in them, right? The nostalgia without the attachment. But really it's more about holding our memories with compassion. A reminder that healing often begins when we stop trying to outrun who we used to be. I just want to know, does that spark anything to you, for you? Where does your mind go when you think of that?
Wow. Well, I was invited here to tell my story about my recovery journey. So my experience, strength, and hope, it's part of me. It's my past. It doesn't define me, but it's a very important part of who I am and where I've come from and how my whole life has just been impacted by that.
Yeah.
And how I hold that with compassion for myself and who I was and where I was in my path and where I'm going. And also, I've been kind of face to face lately with some challenges around other habits and addictions.
Yes, it shows up everywhere.
Yeah. And I've actually been listening to this book called Is It Love or Is It Addiction by Brenda Schaeffer. And it is so incredibly insightful to recognize the roots of my thought patterns and behaviors in my traumas.
Yeah.
So just bringing that stuff into the light. Like when I first downloaded the book, I would listen a little bit and I'd be like, no, I can't listen to that. And I would start avoiding. And then recently I went through something so gut wrenching that the only thing that would give me any peace really was to listen to that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's a little trigger and you're like, stop talking about me like I'm not there. Like I'm not right here.
Yeah, I'm not ready to look at that. It's scary.
Yeah, it's a lot. And, I was telling you before we started, like, this is my favorite deck right now. Like, it is speaking in so many ways. And the fact that, like, it pulls a card that's about looking at our past so compassionately as we're about to embark on this.
Wow.
So let's go ahead and start at the beginning, as it were. First, to get us going, what was your relationship with substances or addictive behaviors like in the beginning, and how did it evolve over time?
Would it be okay if we started with a prayer?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's your conversation. I'm just here to guide it.
Okay. I'm just going to ask that my higher power or the highest power, our angel guides, our ancestors just come in this room and, be here with us to make this a really safe, loving, grounded place so we can share openly and vulnerably.
For sure. I receive it.
Okay. So the question is, would you repeat the question?
Yeah. What was your relationship like with substances or addictive behavior in the beginning? And how did that evolve over time?
Okay. In the beginning, well, the first thing that comes to mind is when I was about 12 years old. I was, must have been 10, and I was living in Dallas, Texas. And I had this best friend named Kelsey from elementary school. And she had this really cool older sister, Heather. And I would go to her house after school, and her sister would make us pass out. You know, like we would like take our arms across our chests and she would pass us out. And like by like squeezing, like, yeah, we would stand against the wall and put our arms in a cross.
Oh my God.
And like she would push on our chest and we would just pass out. And it was just great. Like
the beginning of autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah, the beginning of my future whippet addiction.
Oh my God.
The want. Yeah. So I would come to and I would just feel all warm and cozy and kind of dreamy. And I loved that feeling.
Yeah.
And then when I was, you know, my mom was actually like smoking weed with my brother when I was young and around that time.
Yeah.
And my sister too. And
how old were they?
My sister's 2 years older than me.
Okay, so she was like 12. Or
yeah, well,
12, 14?
maybe like a 12 or 14. And then my brother's 5 years older than me. So he was around 15, 16. And yeah, I think my mom was like smoking weed with us. And I remember having some struggles around my sexual identity. And I would have these, like, there was some like kind of like an undercurrent of homophobia in my family. And, you know, like, oh, that person's a lesbian, you know, stuff like that. But they only said it in private.
Yeah. And
so like, I remember smoking weed with my mom and I started like thinking these thoughts, like, am I a lesbian?
Yeah.
And I was like, you can't think that. Like, you can't think that thought. If you think that thought, then you're gay. And then that's bad. Like, you just can't, don't even think about it being bad. Like, so I would just shove it. And, you know, there was just a lot going on around me in my life when I was a kid that was totally out of my control.
Yeah.
So by the time I discovered alcohol, like I had kind of lost my childhood.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in North Carolina.
Okay.
In Raleigh. And when I was 3, my family moved to Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And
like Dallas or the suburbs of Dallas?
Lake Highlands.
Okay.
And Plano. Yeah.
Okay.
The land of the white people.
Yeah.
All the white people. Well, no, you know what? It was pretty diverse because my sister's best friend, Karina, so a whole family, they were all from Mexico, and my friend Tanya, and I had diverse friends. I remember one of my schoolmates was in Barney, which I thought was so cool. I thought that was the coolest.
Fangirling over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved Barney when I was little. But we moved there when I was 3. And then when I was around 6, my dad had a hard time keeping a job. He was a research physicist, and he was doing research at a chiropractic college. And the college had many campuses distributed throughout the country. So he would go and pursue his research somewhere else. And it was custom in my family for him to set up our new place of living. And then my mom would come and bring us all out there. And this time my mom didn't do that. And she was like, nope, I'm not going to do like the other part of this.
Yeah.
And she started dating someone else. And that person was not nice to us or my brother. And so my dad ended up coming to get us on my 7th birthday in a U-Haul truck. So that was my birthday present that year.
Wow.
And we moved to a little town in the Bay Area called Alameda. Do you know Alameda?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, it was the best time in my childhood.
Yeah. It's okay. I meant to grab the tissues before we started.
I'm okay with, I'm okay with being vulnerable. I'm good with it. We all dealt with the trauma in our own ways. Mm-hmm. And I started like regressing. So like there were some telltale signs when children have trauma, like what happens. And those things were happening with me. And my dad was such a bad motherfucker. Like he was an astrophysicist, but he gave up physics for a while to become a social worker. Mm. He just really wanted to make a contribution to mankind. Mm-hmm. He was very, very smart and he was an empath. Mm-hmm. And so he could see what was happening with me and my brother and sister. And he took us to therapy and he got me my own therapist. Her name was Deborah. Debbie. Yeah, Deborah. And she had me draw my feelings. Wow. So that's something that I still do today. Yeah. I'm actually an artist. And I'll get to that part. Sure. So my dad had lots of girlfriends. And there was this one girlfriend that was super special to me. Her name was Olga Lemonchenko Delanoy. And she was, okay, so I'm Jewish. Okay. So I'm petite and I got like the big curly hair and I'm like hairy and stuff and like a kind of olive complexion and a little quirky. And she was tall and thin and blonde and she wore red lipstick. And I'll never forget the first time I saw her. She had a really dry sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And she opened the door and she was going to watch me that day. And I remember I just fell in love with her immediately. I thought, oh my God, like you're mama. So I found her in the laundry room crying, just kind of huddled. And she said, I'm old and I'm ugly. And she had this joke that her bathroom washcloths were monogrammed with her initials that they spelled old, Olga Lemonchenko Delanoy. Oh, no. And she would joke about this. And it turns out that she was an alcoholic. Okay. And she would hide the wine bottles under her bed. And she would show up sometimes to our outings drunk. And so that was the first time I was really exposed to any substances and I just didn't understand. Mm-hmm. And she ultimately succumbed to alcoholism when I was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And that was just like a huge shockwave for me. And at that same time, my dad had a heart attack and he underwent a quintuple bypass surgery. And so I needed to go and live with my mom during his recovery. Yeah. And that man that my mom was seeing, his name was Wayne. He actually died in a sudden instance of drowning. He was fishing with his friend in Galveston off the Gulf of Mexico. And there were a little boy and girl drowning in there. And he jumped in to save them. And he passed the little girl off to his friend and then he died. So my mom was just zombified. Yeah. She was totally shocked. And at this time I started showing difficulties in school. They diagnosed me with an expressive receptive learning difference. Mm. I think I was just really grappling with a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot of loss, a lot of movement, change. Right? Displacement, change. Yeah.
And during this whole period, my brother and sister were hitting me and especially my sister. There was just a lot of violence in the house. And so, and then they would go, Elyssa, you're so annoying. Like leave it, like go away, you know? And so I just felt really alone and like I didn't belong and just lots of shame. Yeah. So I got on an antidepressant. At this time, I was living in Dallas with my mom. I got on an antidepressant. And after that, I went to a special school, like a private school for kids that had like learning disabilities and stuff. Mm-hmm. And around that time, I started experimenting. I had my first boyfriend. I had my first kiss. And then my mom met my stepdad, Richard, and we met our step family. And I did not want to go live in Nacogdoches with them, East Texas.
Yeah.
So I moved in with my dad, and I lived he had moved to Los Angeles, and I went and lived in Los Angeles for my 8th grade year. And like between 7th and 8th grade, I went through puberty like overnight, and I everything developed, and I got teased at school for that. And so I went and lived back with my mom. That's when I discovered alcohol. So I'm living with my mom in Nacogdoches, Texas. And I didn't know anybody for my freshman year. I'm in a new school, a new city. And I remember like I begged my sister, please let me sit with you and your friends at lunch. And she like totally ditched me. And it was just, I did join theater, and I I made friends in theater, but I got a boyfriend. What was his name? I can't remember his name right now. And he lived in a trailer with his sister and his family, and they smoked cigarettes, and like, I think I started smoking cigarettes at that time. And we all went out to, like a farm, and it was people in Nacogdoches and in these kind of like more rural areas.
Yes.
Rural areas. They'll go down back roads.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like, it's like a whole subculture.
Yeah.
And so we went to this farm, and they gave me a big cup from Sonic with the crunchy ice.
Yeah.
And Sky vodka and Red Bull. And I was sitting on a porch swing with my big ass, like, I was so tiny. I'm 5'2". So I was sitting there with my big ass, like, cup of delicious sauce. And I got up, and when you're like sitting there with you're drinking, you don't know that you're drunk yet.
Yeah.
And you get up and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I got up.
The whole world goes.
Yes. And I felt so euphoric. I felt like a kid. Like I felt like a kid again.
Yeah.
And that had been so taken away from me. I started like running through the field and doing cartwheels. And I was like, man, this is the best. So I lived in Nacogdoches. So this is a college town, Stephen Austin University. And I started to hang out at college parties with my friends. And I would go to these house parties, and I'd get just shit-faced. And I remember my best friend in the world, his name is Javi. He was like the only gay kid at school. And everybody like loved him so much. Like people would just flock to him. He would end up being my best drinking buddy ever in history. Yeah. So we had a long journey together after that. And I went to this party, and he had a boyfriend that his name, I hope no one from my high school hears this.
If they do, they might need to.
Maybe they do. Yeah. He had a boyfriend named Dirk. And I just hated this guy with a passion. I had a princess phone in my room. And I was about 15 at this time. I had a princess phone in my room, and Javi and I would talk on the phone every night, and he would just cry to me about how mean Dirk was. So I just, I hated him. Yeah. So I went to this party at my friend Ryan Jackson's house, and he's actually sober now too, by the way. And I got there early with my drinking friend buddy. What was her name? Sheila. And there were like 5 handles of vodka lined up on the counter. And we thought it would be a good idea to race each other and see who could take the most shots. Oh. So we tallied in permanent marker on our hands. And the only thing I remember was with Dirk got to that party, his Panic at the Disco t-shirt. And I woke up the next morning with my hair wet in some pajamas I didn't recognize, and my clothes were in a plastic bag, just drenched in vomit and urine. And I had been sexually assaulted that night by that person I hated with a passion. And I had all these stories told to me about things that were like insane things that I did, like that I'd fallen off the toilet, or someone was like coming at me with like a chair or something, and I just kept going, or I don't know, just like really crazy things.
Yeah.
And I decided that it was vodka that was my problem. I should just stay away from vodka. It was the vodka.
These negotiations that we have with ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember then I went to like a party on a camping trip, and I was offered a screwdriver. And a screwdriver is orange juice and vodka.
Yeah.
And I reasoned that it was okay to drink the screwdriver because it's healthy, because it has the orange juice.
Yeah.
So after that, the violence with my sister was progressing a lot at home. And I had actually been caught on campus with some drugs in my purse, and I had been thrown out of the school play as a punishment.
Yeah.
And theater was like, I just loved theater so much. And I had the lead role in the play. And when I was on stage, I could just be so free. Yeah. Like all my worries and fears and insecurities and doubts and memories, it would just melt away. And I just felt so energized. And
because you were someone else for that moment, right?
Yeah.
So whatever it was that was affecting you in some way, you were able to like run away from that and throw yourself into this other person.
Yeah.
Right? And their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's freedom. Like it's so wonderful to just dissolve into that. Yeah. And the lights are shining in your face and you can't really see anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just loved being on stage, and that would come back up later on in my life too. So I got thrown out of the school play, and I was doing Coricidin, triple C. It's like this cough, like it's cough medicine in a pill form.
Okay.
And you overdose on it, and you start to hallucinate, and I was doing this at home, and my mom actually maintained 2 separate households, one with her husband and his kids, and then one house for her and her kids, because this is just like the level of dysfunction and chaos. So I'm living at my mom's house, and she's always at her husband's house. So my house ended up being kind of like a party house. Yeah. And my brother moved in there when he was 20. And he brought his friend Adam, and my brother was like smoking a lot of pot. So I got introduced to pot, and I had my first like real boyfriend. His name's Cade, and he would buy me cigarettes, and he had a car, and he would take me to parties, and we would go to Camp Tonkawa. And I learned how to pop a squat there, because So
rural Texas.
Yes, yeah. I was having so much fun, and my sister ended up like throwing something at my head during a fight. So I just kind of had it. So I moved in with my dad after that. And
back in California?
In California. And my dad had actually taken me and my sister on a trip to China that summer after I was 15. When I was 15, he took us to China because my dad was teaching at a magnet school out in California, and he had a foreign exchange student that was living in the house, in his house, and his name was Steven. He was a brilliant kid that excelled in mathematics, and my dad was a mathematician, so they got really close, and the kids' parents invited us all to China and put us up there and flew us all over China, and I had this really eye-opening experience of this. It was just like a culture shock.
Yeah.
And I was living in rural East Texas at the time. And when I came back, I just could not relate to the people there.
Yeah.
I needed to be somewhere bigger. And so I moved to Los Angeles, and my bedroom was being rented out to these 2 foreign exchange students. One of them was a German foreign exchange student who he became my boyfriend and I took his virginity. And then Steven, and my lodging was in the garage. So I would sleep next to my dad's car at night. And I went to Verdugo Hills High School, and it was known as Verdugo Pills Let's Get High School.
Oh my God.
And in Tahunga, California,
okay,
which is also known as the Rock because there's such a major methamphetamine
problem.
Concentration.
Yes. Let's call it a problem.
Yeah, problem. Yeah, it is a problem. It's a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
So
I've heard.
Yeah. So I moved there, and at that time, that's when I was introduced to meth. And I didn't know that that's what it was called. I had this friend named Diane, and her and Christy.
Oh my God.
She was Diane was like a glam punk, and she would wear these power skirts, and I got really into fashion, and I started listening to all this girl punk rock.
Yeah.
And there was this venue in downtown LA called The Smell. And they would have these local punk rock bands come. And there was a really great band that came out of that scene called No Age. It's a really awesome lo-fi band, and they got pretty big. But I was obsessed with this band called Mika Miko.
Okay, I've heard of them.
You have?
Yeah.
Well, I got catfished by them. Yeah. Not them, but somebody pretended to be the lead singer and got in touch with me, and we had this whole relationship. And then she was going to come pick me up from school one day and then stood me up, and I was heartbroken over this. But yeah, so experimenting with my queerness there during that time with that, and with Christy and with Diane. And actually Christy and I would skip school together all the time and get high and smoking weed. And I went with her to my first 12-step meeting.
Oh, okay.
It was Marijuana Anonymous.
Okay.
I was 16. We got stoned before we went.
Of course.
I saw a member of the cast of All That there. And I remember thinking, this is not a real thing. This isn't.
This is a hallucination.
Do you remember Half Baked? We go
the movie.
Yeah, Half Baked. Dave Chappelle goes to an AA meeting, and he says that he has an addiction to weed, and then the dad from Full House stands up and he's like, "What? You can't be addicted to weed. I used to smoke dick, suck dick for crack.
I suck dick for coke." Yeah, I remember that.
So Diane, my friend Diane, the glam punk girl, she introduced me to meth. We would do it in the bathroom. She called it Linda. Oh. So I thought Linda's a white girl name. So this means it's the white girl. It must be cocaine, but I was actually doing meth. And I didn't have a car at that time. And I went with a group of friends to The Smell finally. It's in an alley in downtown LA. We were in the car, and my friends were like, "Get it out. No, don't." And I was like, "Get what? What are you doing?" And they're like, "You don't want any of this." And I was like, "You can't tell me that I don't want it." Yeah. So that was my introduction to smoking meth that night. And I ended up flunking out of school and had to go to summer school. And I decided you know what, I'm going to stop with the drugs and with the weed. And I'm going to get my grades back up. 'Cause in my family, education is really, really important. Yeah. So I got my grades back up, and then I'm smooth sailing at school. And my teachers, they were really there for me. I think they saw a lot of potential in me. My math teacher especially wanted me to join the math team. And I had my Spanish teacher, Mr. Camacho. He was just amazing. he was gay. I used to call him Señorita. And it was our inside joke. He was just the best. I just loved him. I hope wherever he is, he's doing great.
Yeah.
But I ended up running into Krusty Christy, and we got some weed because she was like, let's go get some weed. I'm like, well, let's do it at home. She's like, no. Let's do it right here. So we're rolling a blunt on the school campus, and the school cops pull up and everybody else runs. But my response, like, I don't do fight or flight, I do freeze. So I froze, and I got handcuffed, and I got taken through the school campus, and I got expelled, and I was sent to a continuation school, and it was just awful. So in order to get back into my high school, I ended up going to a Phoenix House residential treatment center. And I decided they wanted to keep me there for quite some time. And I figured out if I could be a model drug addict, then they would let me go. So I pretended like I had accepted that I was an addict, and, oh yes, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
But I was never going to, I wouldn't admit that for another like 15 years.
Yeah. So
I went through rehab, I got out, and then I went right back into drinking and using drugs.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of it.
Yeah. I was going to say, all of this is before even, graduating high school.
Yes.
Right. And you mentioned earlier, like, you were having a lot of fun, as a kid, right?
Yes. Yeah.
When did it stop being fun?
When I met a psychiatrist in the residential rehab center, and he was prescribing me Xanax. I moved out to East Hollywood when I was about 19, 20. No, I had to have been 21 because I was going to bars at that time. I was about 21. And I became addicted to my Xanax at that time. I started snorting it. I developed a major tolerance and dependence. And I underwent like a major depression. I struggled with depression and anxiety like really badly from the time when I started at my first job was, I was getting fired for drinking around that time too. Yeah. I got my first job when I was 15. I worked at a Burger King, and then I worked at a Payless. And I remember when I was working at the Payless, I got horrible anxiety attacks. And so at that time at the time I became addicted to my Xanax, I was living in East Hollywood, and I was working as a canvasser for a nonprofit organization for the environment. And I remember just going to work and just crying all day long. And I was not well. And I had become pretty promiscuous as well through this time, and just trying to find myself. Yeah. So that's when it started to get pretty dark. So I called my mom, and I said, I'm really depressed, and I lost my job as a result of that. And she invited me to come live in Austin. She was going to move to Austin. And so I moved in with her briefly, but I would get into her liquor cabinet, and I was like drinking during the day and using my Xanax. We took a trip across the country together. And during that trip, I ran out of my Xanax prescription, and I detoxed, which now there are all these detox centers for Xanax, but I did it by myself. Moved to Austin, lived in North Campus. Javi, my best high school friend, moved in with me. And for the next nearly 10 years, I would, that was when my alcoholism and drug addiction really got serious. Yeah. I was living within, I had developed an eating disorder when I was in rehab. I remember I got some special food because there was a cooking group there and they gave me special food and I was upset and I just ate it really fast. And I noticed that I was really euphoric.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got so ashamed. So I purged.
Yeah.
And that got me high too. So that was another way I was self-medicating. And I ended up getting into the BDSM community in Austin and experimenting a lot with that. Mm-hmm. And I went to a party at this bikini shop on the East Side called East Side Bikinis, East Side Bikini Company. Mm-hmm. And the owner, her name was Renee. She kind of took me under her wing, and she had actually been an exotic dancer for a really long time.
Yeah.
And she owned her own stripogram company. I remember we were doing some kind of natural ecstasy. She always had this really seductive way of talking about drugs that made them sound exotic.
Yeah.
It was some kind of root that was powdered, and she said it was natural ecstasy. Yeah. So we were doing that and playing dress up, and I said to her, you know what, I've been thinking about becoming a dancer, like a stripper. And she said, well, honey, I was a stripper for 12 years. I said, could you help me become a dancer? She said, of course. And I'll make you all your outfits and I'll train, I'll teach you everything. So I lived with her for like 2 weeks, and I would walk around the bikini studio in my stripper heels and to get used to walking in them. And she would teach me how to give lap dances. And she took me to the Yellow Rose and auditioned me. And I became an exotic dancer, and I did that for 4 years. And during that time, I had so much access to alcohol at work. And I ended up working at a all nude club that was BYOB. Mm-hmm. So there was just
even more.
Yes. And I started using cocaine like on a nightly basis. I had a boyfriend who was a musician and didn't have a job, which I don't know why do strippers always do that?
Sounds hot.
Oh man.
I understand that.
You do?
Yeah. I was like, you have tattoos and a drug addiction? God, come home with me, please.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. You're just my type.
Yeah.
It's in the stars.
Yeah. Clearly. You just give me an excuse to keep being bad.
Yeah. I mean, with everything that had gone on in my life up to that point, I didn't know. I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford college at that time. And my parents weren't going to pay for it. So I got desperate, and I started working in sex work. Mm-hmm. And I was attracting that kind of relationship in my life. And around that time I met my ex, Marcos. And I don't know if I should use names, but we got into this really super toxic relationship. And he's like a sex addict. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I just experienced a lot of sexual trauma. And I became addicted to whippets with him. Mm-hmm. He was the one that introduced me to those. And I would get off work at like 5 a.m. from the all nude strip club, and I would drive all the way from like 183, like on the East 183 at Bluestein, and I would like go all the way down to Slaughter to the adult video megaplex.
Oh yes. That was always my marker of like, oh, now I'm in Austin. Whenever I would cross that on 35.
Yeah. I would get like a big box of whippets, and I would do them in the car, and like, because I needed them to calm down. And, I quit dancing around that time, and I started working on a food trailer. No one else would hire me.
Yeah.
I was always adamant about being truthful about my work experience. People would tell me, don't tell people that you were a stripper. And I'd go, no, I have to be honest.
Yeah. Never mind everything else.
Yeah.
Let me at least be honest.
Let me be honest about this.
Yeah.
Not the fact that I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that for some time. So I was doing that, and I'm with Marcos, and Javi, my best friend, had ended up becoming addicted to meth at that time. And his boyfriend was his dealer. Mm. And we're living in a house together. And my dad got really, really sick from his heart disease and diabetes. And my ex was having an affair with someone else, and they became pregnant. I was just really humiliated. I had a therapist at the time treating me, and I got really, really low.
Yeah.
And I was drinking I remember just drinking like completely full glasses of whiskey, or just like the whole bottle of wine. And I decided to end my life. And so my therapist, Elyssa, had me committed to Seton Shoal Creek Hospital. And I was diagnosed with substance use disorder, major depression, and borderline personality disorder. I spent 6 glorious days in the hospital. It was so wonderful. It was just a break.
Yeah.
I did art therapy.
Yeah.
I had a reading group that I started because I love to read.
Yeah.
And I got out and I met Michelle, who she ultimately ended up becoming my therapist for about 7 years. I'm still with her. We do a therapy group every other week together with other women.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked as my social worker to help me reintegrate into the community. And at this time, it was suggested to me that I try AA.
Yeah.
That there was an energetic force field created when people of a common intention get together, and it can help you realize that intention.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to tell me I was an alcoholic.
You had to come to that
Or
realization
an
on
addict.
your own.
I did.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
So I started going to meetings,
Okay.
and I would go out, drink. I go, oh my God, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to do this again. And then I'd feel like really remorseful.
Yeah.
And just I'd get these really bad hangovers, and I was really depressed. And I would go to an AA meeting, just sit in the back and cry, and then go back out and drink again.
Yeah.
And at this time, Michelle had become my therapist, and she started interviewing me after every time I would go back out and drink. She was helping me to like kind of start getting a grip. I started trying to practice sobriety.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I stayed sober for 4 months at one point. And she recommended this book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Okay.
It's a 12-step program for unlocking your creativity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I've always been an artist, but after about the age of 13, I stopped being able to draw, which was always my passion, which happened to coincide with the first time I was ever sexually abused. So just right after that, I stopped being able to draw. Mm-hmm. And when I went into therapy with Michelle, she started helping me work on that. And so she recommended this book, The Artist's Way. Mm-hmm. Julie Cameron is a sober alcoholic. She's actually a member of AA as well. Mm-hmm. And I started to use the morning pages. It's a journaling practice where you write 3 pages longhand stream of consciousness journaling every morning. And I would just write, drink again. And I couldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
So I got sober for 4 months, and then I went back out and drank again. And I was on like a 3-day excursion with strangers, and like had an orgy, and like just a lot of craziness.
Yeah.
And so I started coming to more grips with what was happening with me. And I thought, if I could just have a loving, monogamous relationship, then everything will be okay.
That'll fix everything.
Yeah. So I met this guy. He was so nice. I met him on Tinder. He was so nice. Brandon. He was a chef, and he was 4 years sober.
Okay.
And I remember on our first date, I had 30 days of sobriety.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, hey, you know, I'm sober too, but I'm not an alcoholic, but, you know.
Yeah.
So we went out to a sushi restaurant. And when I got there, looking at the menu, and I'm like having so much fun with this guy. He was so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, I'm not depressed. I'm not feeling sad. So I'm not using alcohol to cope, so I can have a drink. Like, it's just accentuating a good time.
Yeah.
So I got drunk on that date, and he had to just rip me out of that sushi restaurant. I ended up manufacturing a bunch of reasons to think that he didn't want to be with me. I went out and cheated on him with 2 ex-partners. I came back and I aired all my grievances. I was like, hey, can we have a talk? I want to tell you my thoughts and feelings about what's going on in our relationship. He listened to all my grievances and he said, okay, I just won't do that anymore. And I was like, oh, well, I cheated on you, but I was drunk, so.
That's okay.
He dumped me.
Yeah.
He said, you know, you might not be able to see your own bullshit, but that doesn't mean other people can't. I felt so victimized.
Mm-hmm.
So I called my therapist and I told her what happened and how mistreated I'd been. And she said, Elyssa, do you see how you were responsible for this here, 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 and here? And I was like, oh my God, I can't trust my perception of reality. I'm delusional.
Wow.
And I said to her, I gotta stop drinking.
Yeah.
So I went to a beginner's meeting, happened to be a beginner's meeting.
Yeah.
On a Wednesday night at the Bolden group of AA in Austin. It was a fire pit meeting. This was in 2020 during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
My boyfriend's home group was Bolden. So I thought if I went there that he would see me getting sober and take me back. I knew from all my failed attempts before that if I really wanted to get sober and stay sober, I needed to get a sponsor and work the 12 steps.
Yeah.
So I met my sponsor there that night. She's still my sponsor. I heard her say something that really reached me. She got through to me.
Yeah.
I approached her at the end of the meeting. I said, would you be willing to meet with me and see if we're compatible to work together as a sponsor? So I met her. I told her my whole, we went for a walk and she had a little pad of paper and she wrote down everything about my story. I told her about the thing with the chef guy and she said, do you see how you were responsible here, 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 and here?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, 2 against 1.
Yeah.
They must know something and I don't know. So we started working together. We went through the big book. I remember fiending for alcohol really badly at that time. I had to sit on my hands.
Yeah.
And there's this part in the big book that says if you have any doubt like that you're an alcoholic, step over to your nearest bar room.
Yeah. Try
some controlled drinking. Have a drink. And I go, it says I can drink right there, so I'll see you later. She said, no, keep reading. Have a drink and stop abruptly. And I went, why would I ever want to do that?
Exactly.
So I've been sober ever since then.
Awesome. So that time it stuck.
Yes. Yeah. I had an awakening. I had a wake up call.
Yeah.
I knew I would never want to do that.
Yeah.
That sounds hellish.
Yeah.
Having a drink and stopping. You'd have to fucking, excuse my language.
No, you're fine.
You'd have to fucking strap me in a straitjacket to make me stop drinking after that.
I mean, it's the adage that they say, you know, if you're controlling it, you're not enjoying it. And if you're enjoying it, you're not controlling it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So then what does life in recovery look like today? And how do you keep moving forward?
Life in recovery today. Oh, boy. Well.
Oy vey. I heard the accent come out. You said, oh, boy, but I heard the accent.
Oy vey. Oy gewalt. Okay, so today, well, the first thing that comes to mind is working with other women, taking them through the 12 steps. That's changed my life so much for the better. Being able to help other people, hearing their stories.
Yeah.
It's such a privilege for them to, I do 5th steps. I just did one the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Being able to see people become more of who they are. Then that's happened for me.
Yeah.
So I had this sponsor named Michelle. When I first, one of the failed attempt, one of the attempts that led to my ultimate sobriety date.
Exactly.
She drew this picture of a little stick figure girl, and she said, "Okay, this is you." And she took a pen and she started scribbling all over it. She said, "And this is when this one happened, and this is when this one happened, and this is when," and you got all covered up. And in recovery, we get to recover that true self under there.
What an amazing visual representation, right? It's you get to take that eraser and start to take the scribbles off.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
For me, that was shame that was taken away. And when I first started working the steps, I thought, oh my God, selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, afraid, character defects, shortcomings. Oh my God, they're out to get me. They've got their pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
But through the process of coming face to face with my frailties, my patterns, choices I've made, and things that I keep doing over and over that don't get me where I really want to be, that are harmful to me and other folks. The more that I do that, the more free I become.
Yeah.
So today my recovery, I have a sponsor, and it's the one that I met in Austin at that meeting. I got a bunch of other sponsors in between because I have trouble with relationships.
You don't say.
Yeah. That's one major facet of my recovery work today. I have a therapist. I go once a week with her. She specializes in trauma work, and she was actually the director of a treatment center for people with PTSD and addicts. So I work with her for my therapy, and I go to a women's group every other week. I sponsor other women. I'm always willing to help whenever somebody needs help with their sobriety. I'm always there. And if the trash needs to be taken out at a meeting, I'm all over it. And I'll clean the cups, and I chair meetings, and I have a home group, and I have 2 home groups. I have a 12-step family with my sponsor and then her sponsees, and we all do 10 steps with each other. So if I'm afraid or agitated or in doubt about something, I can call them. I have a lot of support, and I'm working on my bachelor's degree in studio art.
Oh, awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's what you alluded to earlier when you bring a bunch of people together with a commonality, the kind of energy that creates, the support that creates, and the way that kind of breaks away at that feeling of shame, right? Because there's nothing to be ashamed of here because we've all been there.
Oh
right?
my God, yeah.
Oh, so much. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was quite a journey, right? And to where you are now. I forgot to mention this when we were talking earlier, but I like to close with some rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
So
Hit me.
fill in the blank. Recovery has given me.
Everything.
What's one word you'd use to describe your recovery journey?
Resilient.
What's a daily habit or ritual that keeps you grounded?
Prayer.
If you find yourself struggling or triggered, what's the first thing you do?
Watch my breath.
This or that, morning routine or night routine?
Morning.
Meditation or movement? You can pick both.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answer. The look of consternation on your face, I was like, okay. Talking it out or writing it down?
Writing it down.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Name one book, song, or movie that's been meaningful to your recovery. I know you mentioned 2 in the...
Book, song, or movie.
That's been meaningful to you in your recovery.
Do I have to choose one?
No, I'm a Gemini.
Okay.
I can't make
Okay,
decisions.
Okay, so book, Grist for the Mill by Ram Dass.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's so good.
Okay. And I will link all of these in the show notes.
Yeah. Grist for the Mill by Ram Dass. Song. Let It Be by the Beatles.
Okay.
And movie, Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot.
I've never even heard of that.
Oh, it's so fucking good. You know, Jonah Hill is really butthurt that it didn't get enough like airtime. Like they didn't promote it enough because it was like I think he like was quoted as saying it was his best acting of his career.
Okay.
And it's Joaquin Phoenix.
Why didn't that get more? Okay.
And like Runa.
Yes, she was in the girl with the Rooney Mara.
Yeah, something like
she was in the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yes, I love that movie. Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, actually.
It's so good. It's about this comic book illustrator who is an alcoholic, and he gets into a car accident and becomes a paraplegic, and his story about his recovery.
Okay. Gonna have to go look that up immediately.
It's so good.
3 more. A piece of advice you return to when things get tough.
More will be revealed.
What's one phrase or mantra that keeps you going when things... Oh, that's the same.
A phrase or mantra? Oh, I have one. I have one.
Okay.
Aum Mani Padme Hum.
Okay. And if someone hears your story today and takes one thing away from it, what do you hope it is?
Anybody can get better.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's meant a lot that you were so open and emotionally vulnerable and true to the 6 of Cups, right? Really went back and brought those memories forward, but with a lot of compassion for yourself.
Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. You're such a mensch.
A mensch and a mess.
Yeah. We're all messy.
A little bit. A little bit. That's it for this episode of The Speaker Meeting, breaking the silence one story at a time. A huge thank you to our guests today for sharing their journey with us. Recovery isn't easy, but conversations like this remind us that we're not alone and that change is possible. If you're struggling, know that there is help and there is hope. You don't have to do this alone. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. And if you'd like to share your own story, I'd love to hear from you. You can submit your information at geminisproductions.com/thespeakermeeting. And if this conversation meant something to you, help us spread the word. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. The more we talk about recovery, the more we remind people that they are not alone. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, Recovery is real.